To have a symposium like this, a gathering like this, a panel with your caliber, we will provide, I hope, a solution to the ill of society. And it is really you, thought leaders of today, that will make a difference. And I hope this symposium will provide a solution to that. Professor Rowe, welcome. Yeah. And of course, you're all aware of Professor Rowe. So let me go ahead. I did randomly selected a name. So I'll start with Dr. Dave. Welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. I just unmuted, and it's incredible to see Professor Rowe from India, I assume, Mr. Elton from Texas, Bruce. What an incredible cohort of colleagues. It's an honor, Dr. Abe, to be on the call with these folks.
It's wonderful to hear that. And of course, we have Oleg from Moscow, Lauren from Napa, California. So welcome to all of you. You are considered the father of our modern HR. And it's a well-deserved title, plus guru of management. So I welcome you quickly, and I'm glad you said what you said. And then I jump to Chester. Chester, welcome to our first virtual symposium.
Yeah, delighted to be with such wonderful company. Thank you for the invitation, and hopefully we can solve all the world's problems in the next 2 hours.
I hope so. That's something.
Let us hope so.
Something at least to provide a solution. Oleg, Dr. Oleg, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored. And as Chester said, our aim to make a bit of something positive for others within those 2 hours.
Yes.
That's our service.
Yes. And to our attendees, I'm sure you came here because you know most of our excellent panel, but I want to just give you a liner. So this way, when you go to Google it, you're aware of it. Dr. Oleg is considered the Da Vinci of visionary leadership, and Chester is considered the guru of gratitude plus the apostle of appreciation. And they reach these titles not because they are just like titles. They reach these titles because they have done their work and they serve society. Bruce, welcome.
Welcome. I'm delighted to be here with so many fantastic people and learning about new folks and reconnecting with some others. So I'm happy to be here, ready to learn.
Ready to learn and share your insights. Bruce is the managing editor of Leader to Leader, a prestigious journal that has insights from leader to leaders plus the audience. How can I forget Lauren? Lauren, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Professor Rowe, welcome to the symposium.
So thank you for connecting all thought leaders into one platform. And I'm very excited to be with James like Dev Ulrich, who is my best friend for more than a decade. And he wrote a foreword for one of my books. And he's so kind to provide a code for my soft leadership. And I'm grateful to Chester for writing a foreword for one of my books. And I'm grateful to Bruce Rosenstein, who is also a follower of Peter Drucker.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unexpected, but very nice. Thank you.
He shipped this book around 8 to 10 years back. A complimentary copy sent me 8 to 10 years back. And I am also a follower of Peter Drucker. He is also a follower of Peter Drucker. And he published 2 articles on Leader to Leader Journal.
Sure did.
So I'm very excited to meet all stalwarts. And I'm grateful to you for bringing all these thought leaders into one platform.
Of course, you're welcome. I should also mention, Bruce is the cherisher of the legacy of Peter Drucker. We know him, we know Peter Drucker as Peter Drucker, but the people who brought Peter Drucker to us, our generation, is Bruce and his kind. So thank you to all of you. So as you know, we have uncertain times. We live in uncertain times, and people like yourself will make a difference by providing a solution. I don't want to say again, we have a failed leadership. We have to look to you for leadership and for solutions. As I told you earlier, I have randomly selected who's going to be the first one, and Dr. Dave is going to be I'm going to ask Dr. Dave the first question. I prepared some questions to all of you. So Dr. Dave, the question to you, sir, in these uncertain times, what role does HR play in serving others? whether talent, organization, community, and society?
You know, I think Chester should answer that. He's an apostle of appreciation. And by the way, I've just modeled what HR should do. We should defer to the experts who know more than we do. So I'm sorry, Chester, I just scared you, my dear friend. You know, I think in times of uncertainty, and we face incredible crises, plural. We've clearly got a global pandemic that's affecting 7 million people worldwide. We have horrible racial injustice and social activism that affects Black Lives Matter in the United States, but affects immigration and refugees around the world from all countries. We have horrible issues around political bickering. I think that starts in the United States. We would love to get rid of that and export it, but we can't seem to do that. We have natural disasters, fires in California where Lauren is. And in the midst of all those crises, I think the word that comes to my mind is an incredible sense of uncertainty, that we just don't know what's next. Who could have predicted January? By the way, I'm going to have to be shorter here because I'm with colleagues who have a lot to say. Who could have predicted in January that we're going to be here in October? Nobody.
Yes.
When somebody says, here's a new normal, I say, turn around and run like mad. Nobody knows the new normal. At least I don't know the new normal. Maybe somebody on the phone does, but or on the call does. So what do we do in that world? I think in the face of uncertainty, we can see threat or we can see opportunity. And I think a lot of people feel threatened in the unknown because they don't know where to go. They don't know what's there. I think the job of HR and the job of good business leaders and thought leaders who are on the phone today help us discover opportunity. How do you see opportunity in the middle of that threat? How do you harness the uncertainty? Don't tolerate it, don't be threatened by it, but harness it. And I think that's what HR's job is to harness that uncertainty.
Harness the uncertainty, embrace it, and deal with it?
Harness is embracing. I love the metaphor of harness. You harness the sun, you harness the wind. You capture that which is so intangible. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what HR does. I think you have to change your assumptions. And it's not about HR, it's about the business managing their talent, their leadership, their organization in ways that harness and embrace the uncertainty, run into it. And we've discovered in a lot of disciplines, and Chester and I did a session on this, harnessing uncertainty. You tame your apprehensions, you focus on the future, not the past. Don't just look back to see what's done, anticipate the future. You experiment, you fail fast, you surround yourselves with creative people. You harness that uncertainty so that you can create opportunities in the midst of difficulty. That's where I would go.
That's wonderful. Chester, let's go to you. So since Dave gave me the ball there. So
by the way, I've got to show, it is so cool that Chester gave me socks. So this is my, and by the way, I'm afraid to open them, Chester, because they'll lose some of their viability. That the fact that I've got socks from Chester Elton has made my day. I carry them on my desk. They're sitting here as a symbol from the apostle of appreciation. Okay, I'm done.
That's
it's like an action figure. Keep it in the original box. You don't ever play with it. Yeah, there you go. Well, you know, I couldn't agree with Dave more. And I think, you know, in business, a lot of it comes to organization, you know, reinventing the organization, you know, victory through the organization. HR competencies become really important. It's really looking HR from the outside in. I think I got all the titles of your book in there, Dave, of all the books you've written. And what he's saying, I think, is really key. And I would just expand on that because Dave said, you know, surround yourself, take risks, fail quickly. You've got to create a culture where it's safe to do that. And I think that's really incumbent on leaders. And, you know, we did a lot of research on leading with gratitude that we published. And one of the key elements, I think, of great leaders in so much uncertainty is an attribute that they assume positive intent and they create this emotional safe place to experiment. You know, assuming positive intent for me is just so refreshing where leaders say, look, this is a situation none of us have been in before. So I'm going to make the assumption that we're all trying to do as much as we can, as often as time and in as timely a way as we can. And we're going to work on this together. And I'm going to give you that space. to pivot. I'm going to give you that space to keep experimenting, knowing that you're homeschooling your kids and your vineyards burned down, and you've got an asthmatic spouse or elderly parents that you're looking out for. That with all of that happening, we can still find ways to experiment together, to work together. And that's where I think, we joked a little bit, but where the organization that Dave talks about so much, it has to be carefully constructed where it's a safe place to do that. And once you can establish that safety, I think wonderful things, opportunities happen. You can harness people's ideas and innovation because it's safe to do so.
Excellent. So you mentioned leading with gratitude. There you emphasized the role of empathy in dealing with employees and others, right? Why is that important?
Well, I think one of the great gifts of the pandemic is it's affected everyone equally, right? So now you've got senior leaders and line managers and everyday employees, and we're all dealing with the same thing. We're all wearing masks. We're all trying to figure out how to homeschool our kids. And I think that brought empathy in a new way to a lot of leaders, where all of a sudden they're going, oh man, this really is hard. And there's, I can't just hire people, or I can't use my title. I've got to do all the things everybody else is doing, right? And my commute is now I walk through the door of my office and I'm home. So this idea of empathy in really walking in your employees' shoes and really understanding what it takes to get work done, really the really creme de la creme leaders have developed even more empathy for their people and how to do it. I love to cite Gary Ridge, who's the CEO of WD-40. And most people think it's just a product. It's actually a global company. And he talks about a tribal culture because he says, teammates or associates, it's not good enough. In a tribe, we help feed each other, we protect each other, we cheer for each other, we look out for each other. And it's that kind of empathy, I think, in a world now that is completely upside down, that really is the organization that's going to succeed and be able to pivot. Being empathetic is almost number one on the hit parade of attributes of great leaders.
So being empathetic leads to compassion. Compassion leads to serving others. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Lauren, let's go with you. Why do people need leaders who care?
To me, that's, following up with what Chester has said. I mean, leaders that care, that's at the top of, why be a leader if you didn't care? You are the one that is, running with the charge. You're the one that is supporting the mission of the organization. You are the one that is listening to your team, to your, making sure that everybody's following along on the same page. And as both Dave and Chester have alluded to, in the time of change and fear, we have to really, as leaders, be the ones to show that compassion, show that empathy, and make sure that people are there with us along that way. It's important, no matter the size of the business. I run two small businesses. I have a small team, and we've had to learn to be, on our feet and going forward. And in the process of doing that, we've also given back, and we also want to continue to give to our community. We want to continue to help others who are going through similar situations in similar areas. Here in Napa Valley, it's a very small community. All of us who are mostly in the wine business or hospitality business, it's extremely important. If we don't give to each other and help each other get through these hard times, difficult times, then together, like we're all on the same ship, that ship could go down. That's the last thing we want to have happen.
So the role of the leader is very important in helping the community and also the organization. Plus, and this time, the country itself needs a leader that will really care. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And having empathy, having that compassion, it builds that trust in others as well, because they feel that they can then have the ability to pivot, to come up with new ideas, whatever it might be, to move the organization forward, especially in difficult times. So I think having empathy, encouraging others to dig deep into their own ability to be compassion and have empathy is very exciting and a very special time for us to see this happening as we speak within this time of very turbulent, era.
Very turbulent times. It's very true. Thank you so much for that. Like Dr. Oleg, leaders without vision doesn't work, does it? So does the individual leader within an organization shape the vision of the organization, or does the vision of the organization shape the individual leader? What's your take on this?
It's simple. How to make a prosperous 1 billion company to hit a 1 million profit or turnover, and trust it to a leader without vision. It's a simple recipe, right? Or what's about organization without vision? It's a giant marching off a cliff, right? It's that simple. But in a common and a good sense, vision is greater than any individual, or actually is greater than the organization itself. And in this sense, we are all interacting with a vision in terms of growth or in terms of common good. So we're serving each other in that planet of that vision. And in this sense, if it's a leader, he or she must shape that vision in terms of its growth, or make it even stronger. And also everyone is shaped by the organization's vision in return. And vision is about serving people's needs. Actually, vision shapes both sides. Its creator or its creators, or an organization as well. So it's mutual interaction in terms of growth. And in fact, the true vision must be inspirational and pragmatic. And yes, COVID showed us, and I'm echoing Dave and I'm echoing Chester, that true vision must be not just pragmatic, it must be certain in times of uncertainty. It leads us somewhere into the prosperous future. If it's just for a leader, it's personal ambitions. If it's just for organizations, it would end up with the bottom line. And so no one would be attracted to it. And that's, in fact, leader must be strong enough to contribute to it. And the vision of organization must be strong enough to attract people. Otherwise,
do they have to align? Do they have to align those two visions? Or can the individual leader have his own vision? Or do
if you have your own vision for yourself, you will end up staying alone. Because
so what happens? So what do we do?
Yeah, otherwise, step away and go away, right? It's about creating the life for many. I'm impacting the life of many people. I'm impacting the next generation, right? Vision is about impact on the next generation. It's not about drafting a strategic plan for 25 years that no one would execute, because by that time, everyone who was involved in creating that plan would be off the company.
Yes.
That's as simple.
That's wonderful. Well said. Thank you so much. Professor Rowe, let's go with you. How can we utilize the components of soft leadership, which is your expertise, to enhance and encourage the act of serving others?
Thank you for your question. Let me briefly explain what's about soft leadership. We have several types of leadership styles, like servant leadership, like task-oriented, democratic, deliberative, like that. So when I was conducting training programs for corporates, so they were not happy with the prevailing styles. Then I coined soft leadership. And soft leadership consists of 11 C's, 11 characteristics, like character, charisma, conscience, conviction, courage, communication, compassion, commitment, consistency, consideration, and contribution. So all these 11 C's collectively constitute soft leadership. And for this, Ulrich has provided a leadership code around 10 years back, and I added a book, and he has written a foreword for this book. So soft leadership is all about people orientation without compromising task orientation. And it is like, there is nothing like leaders and followers. Soft leadership emphasizes more or less about partners striving for progress. That is basically about this, soft leadership. Now coming to the point of serving, the servant, when we want to serve, the components like compassion. Some of our colleagues have talked about compassion, then contribution, character, commitment, consideration. All these C's will play a crucial role for serving the people. So these are the components that will help to serve the people, and especially the.
So what do? You help people to become more concerned. How do you do that? I mean, the answer to this is going to be, I know, longer, but it seems to me what you're saying is we have to emphasize these C's or 11 C's for people to become more in line with soft leadership. So they have to know all the components of it, and then we can align it with serving others.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
But the point here is,
Okay,
we have to be more compassionate. One of the 11 C's I emphasize is compassion, which has been highlighted by
so
others.
one of the C's is compassion. I see.
Compassion, which is very much required.
Thank you for that. Which is the key really to anything else. Bruce, let's go with you. What is the wisdom behind serving others?
Well, I think that the wisdom behind it, to me, is a couple of points. Number one is that when you really look at this issue of serving others, it's a very wide tent. Lots of things go into it. And I think, I have to thank you, besides just for being here, but also in preparing for this. It's kind of a good way to organize your life, to what's important to you, especially as it relates to these topics. So I thought that in answering this, I want to be as specific as possible, to get down to specifics in 3 ways and just be real brief about it. In terms of role models, because I always think the idea of role models and inspirations are so important. So within my life and my working life, you mentioned my role in Leader to Leader as managing editor of Leader to Leader. Well, the person I work with very closely, who is the editor-in-chief of Leader to Leader, is Frances Hesselbein. Now, some of you may well know her. Her organization that she leads is the co-publisher of Leader to Leader. She's an absolutely amazing person. It's a true privilege to work with her. And she, as also many people know, was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was the CEO of the Girl Scouts of the USA for a number of years. And then when she, and I should say right off the bat here, that Frances's motto in life is to serve is to live. So her whole being is around service. Everything we're talking about today, she has lived for many, many years. And she's of advanced years. I'm not going to say how old she is, but she's of very advanced years, but also extremely, extremely active and generative. And so the second part of that is another Presidential Medal of Freedom honoree, Peter Drucker. And Frances and Peter worked quite closely together. Peter did quite a bit of pro bono work. And for those of your viewers who don't know, he was considered the father of modern management. He lived to be 95. And so even though he worked a lot with for-profit organizations, he also did lots and lots of pro bono consulting. Part of that was for the Girl Scouts, where he and Frances worked very closely together. And then when Frances retired from the Girl Scouts, so think about this, retired, but then went on to start an organization for nonprofit leadership and management with some other people, but with Peter's name and Peter really being a part of it. So the two of those folks work together very, very closely. And if I might add, and of course, as Professor Rose nicely showed my book, that, I've written 2 books about Peter and continue to extend his work. The third part that I wanted to bring in, because it is so, thank you again, Professor Rao, wonderful. Third part that is so important to this and also important in my life is that for many years I worked as a practicing corporate librarian for USA Today newspaper. And for close to 25 years now, I've been an adjunct professor at Catholic University in their Department of Library and Information Science. That profession is totally service oriented. That's their whole reason for being. And there's also a Drucker connection there. Drucker gave the keynote address in 2002 in Los Angeles for a group that I'm part of called Special Libraries, which is for business and organizational libraries. So in drawing role model from Francis, from Peter, but I would also urge you during this time, anybody on this call, to really think about the role of libraries, and libraries of all types, meaning, as I just mentioned, organizational, but also public libraries, academic libraries, school libraries, and think about the roles of those libraries and what can be done for both individuals and for organizations. So that's what I feel is the wisdom behind this whole idea of having role models and having a big white tent and also drawing inspiration.
Drawing inspiration. And just to mention, you also were one of the few that interviewed Peter Drucker when he was alive.
Right. Well, I mean, a number of people, interviewed him over the years, but I was one of the few to, in the very last of his life. So I did an interview with him, turned out to be exactly 7 months to the day before he died out in California. And I did a video of that, and I have a short excerpt of it on my website.
Thank you, Bruce. Dr. Dave, let's go back to you, sir. Trust me, I'm following you.
Well,
and
first of
yesterday
all,
you wrote.
First of all, can I,
oh,
Dr. Abe, can I say first of all, Bruce, given that
yes,
you interview people who die, I'd like you not to interview me. So,
okay, we got it.
I would like to postpone that interview for 10 years. So anyway,
Well,
I'm sorry, Dr. Abe.
let's make it 20 years, 25 years, 30 years from now.
Right.
Thank you. So, because we need you, Dr. Dave. We need your insights in helping others.
The world needs Dr. Dave. The world needs Dr. Dave for his HR insights and ideas.
Well, and Abraham, you're going to lose control. Dr. Rao and I, Professor Rao and I, we have a common disease. And we are both afflicted with this disease, and you never guess it. You're going to have to look it up. It's called hypergraphia. Hypergraphia. It's a disease of writing. And he writes more than any person I've ever known. Every time I turn around, I think, oh, I'm trying to get an idea down. And then he's got 2 books on that idea. And Dr. Rao has a disease. It's called hypergraphia. and it's a disease of the Russian great authors. For Oleg, it's a disease. And I think you've infected me with some of that. And Professor Rao, your work is just so profound. Anyway, I'm sorry, Dr. Abe, you've just lost it. It feels like we're in America. This is an American political debate.
Let me just have
one point. And you've lost control. No, I'm sorry.
Let me give you one point. So let me talk about this disease. Now we're doing the symposium just now. Yesterday, Professor Rao sent me an article he published about serving others, inspired by this, published in CEO World. So I know exactly what you're saying. For all the attendees, Professor Rao has 40 books or so. Dr. Dave has 38 books to your credit.
So I've got to show you the power of my books. The power of my books. I'll show you. It's in my drawer. I just got a check. Nobody admits how much you make on a book. It's a book I did a few years ago. It's a check for $4.23.
Yes.
So that's the power of my writing. I got $4.23.
This is a well-earned.
Yeah, it's well-earned, $4. I can go buy a hamburger at a discount for the book that I did. So, okay, that's my real check. I'm keeping that check.
I know there ain't much in books, but let me ask you something here. Yesterday you wrote, I'm going to open a quote here. Organization has 4 times more impact than talent on business results. Talent does matter, but organizations matters even more. Close of quote. Here, Dr. Dave, you're talking about who has more influence to make an impacted difference. The question to you, sir, is how can a talent lead an organization to make a difference, especially in the field of serving others?
You know, there's some research that's out there, and Chester, you were kind of quoted. I am so impressed. Only my mother has all of my books, and now my mother and Chester, which is good company. my passion is not about the activity, it's the value that comes from the activity. So build on your strengths. That's a terrific idea, and it's incomplete. Build on your strengths to strengthen others. If your strengths don't strengthen someone else, you're a narcissist. You're not really being a good leader. Use your power as a leader to empower someone else. The goal of leadership power is not to assimilate resources, it's to distribute and empower others to get their resources. Build the next generation. Leaders matter as individuals, leadership matters as an enterprise. And so what we really focus on in organizational work is not the activity of leadership, of talent, but the outcome of that activity that is sustainable. And that's one of the assumptions we come in with. And what we found is that done well, the organization takes, and I'll use my fingers, this is individual talent, the fingers, the fist is the organization. What the individual talent does are the raw ingredients, and they come together to create a great organization, the culture, the capability, and it's that organization that has sustainable effect. That's what we found in our research. That's what we find in practice, that the organization has 4 times the impact on business results than individual talent. You fight a war with people, you win a war with organization. That's what we found in our research.
That is impressive. Thank you for that, Dr. Dave. Chester, let's go to you.
Sure.
You wrote the book about the carrot principles. The question to you, sir, is who is more impactful and has more influence, the carrot or the stick?
It's the carrot. It's always the carrot.
Ready with carrot. You're ready with carrot.
It's all about the props. It's all about the stuff. Yeah. You know, I was so impressed with Bruce when he was talking about Frances Hesselbein. You know, and you never discuss a woman's age, although I will tell you that last year I attended a party for her 102nd birthday. So that was last year. I'm not going to tell you how old she is this year. Last year, she was 102. And the thing that is so remarkable about Frances is that she absolutely leads with the carrot. You know, there's not a disingenuine bone in her body, and it's all about helping other people. I would submit that the reason she is still as sharp as she is, being over 100 years old, is because she spends very little time thinking about herself. You know, she is constantly looking at what she can do for other people. And it's not, you know, she's, I mean, I've never heard Frances, and I haven't spent as much time with her as Bruce, I've never heard her say an unkind thing about anyone. You know, it's always, what can we do to build? What can we do to help? And to me, that is the essence of a carrot culture, of a culture of gratitude, is let's figure out how we build. You know, Dave talks about the organization, building on people's strengths and building on their potential. I want to share with you a quick story, and it had an enormous impact on me. I was at a conference. I was one of the guest speakers, and there was a session they had. They went around to all, and this was a leadership development conference, right? And they were going around and said, what do you expect from your leaders as you are the leaders of the future? And one gentleman said something I've never forgotten. He said, I don't want my manager just to make me a better worker, make me more productive. I want my manager, my leader, to help me become a better person. And I thought, boy, that, you know, now we've blended life and work. You know, you don't have a work life and a personal life and a spiritual life and a, you know, whatever. You have one life, and it's all coming together. And where do we spend most of our time? It's at work. And so the great leaders, the great organizations understand that. It's about development. It's about caring. It's Frances Hesselbein. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Bruce, didn't Peter Drucker say that the greatest leader he had ever met was Frances Hesselbein?
Yes. Something to that effect, yes, by all means, yes.
Yes, yes.
So your answer, it's the carrot. It's always the carrot.
Oh, the carrot. For those who don't know what the concept of the carrot means, what does it mean briefly? What does the carrot concept means?
Well, you know, I'm going to channel my father, John Dalton Elton, in this moment, who had a great baritone voice. In fact, we often said that Bing Crosby impersonated my father. And his favorite song, I think, sums up what the philosophy of the carrot is. And it goes like this. You gotta accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative and latch on to the affirmative and don't mess with Mr. In Between. Oh no, don't mess with Mr. In Between. That's the carrot.
That's the carrot. Well said. Very well said. We should give you a clap for this. You have a good voice as well. So, Lauren, what are the benefits of serving others?
There's so many benefits of serving others, and it's something, you know, over my career and learning from others who've taught me the way. And I think part of it is, you know, obviously it just feels good. It's at the end of the day, when you've had a tough day, if you can say that you've given back to someone or you've helped them do something that they thought they couldn't do or whatever it is, it resonates within your heart. It resonates within your soul that you were able to make that person's day a better day. I think that's really critical. I mean, it creates also, you know, a sense of belonging to a community. It creates a sense of being part of something bigger, and that you are, you know, all on the same page, moving forward to whatever the goal or the ideal is. And I think that's part of it. And, you know, it's essentially, it's something that can be taught. It is not necessarily always innate. Some of us have that innate ability. Others, it's learning through watching others do what we're talking about here in terms of leadership of giving and that kind of area. And I think being able to do that it, you know, basically reduces your stress a little bit in life. I think it really is something that the concept of giving and being giving is a unique one in terms of how do you learn to be that. And again, I've learned it by watching others, by participating, by just putting initially a little bit out there initially, and then that feeds upon itself and you end up doing more and more and more until it becomes, in my case, you know, part of my entire career. And that for me also helps with the business, and it helps with the, you know, both sides of that equation. So it's been a great thing to learn about how giving helps and how it is part of all of this sense of community and sense of belonging. And I think it's just something that it can be learned by anyone pretty much.
Everyone, and it makes us feel good about ourselves the minute
Absolutely.
we give.
And right now, more than ever, we need that. Right now is the opportunity to do just that, because this era, this year, with all the things going on, I find that more I can do and more I can give and more I can help others helps mitigate all the other stress and anxiety and everything else that's going on in the world. So that's, I think, a real balance going forward.
You mentioned something very important, which is stress and anxiety. And I know when I come back to Chester, he is writing a book about anxiety at work. And we had the chance to talk about that in a previous event where he talks about important to remove the stress from your organizational setting so the environment will be a very good, healthy environment. And the same thing from an organizational setting to a society setting. We do need to remove the stress at any possible ways. And when you have the chance to talk again, you may probably elaborate on this further. That will be something to consider. Thank you so much, Lauren. Dr. Oleg, in your upcoming book, The Vision Code, which I was one of the lucky few to read it, is not yet published. It will be hopefully in January. It's the Vision Code where he cracked the vision. He cracked the vision. And so everybody can be hopefully a visionary after reading that book. You mentioned and you told us about how vision is created by one individual and later it becomes the property of all. Explain that to me or to us.
It's just simple, actually. For instance, we don't raise children for ourselves. We give ourselves to raise them. And similarly, when we create vision, we're creating it not for ourselves. We're creating it to live for people. So vision is normally created by a single person, but it quickly becomes a property of many. and that allows us to grow. And because no one could accomplish something great or huge, as we discussed, on his or her own, it's impossible. And in this sense, vision must be shared to attract more people and attract more involvement, and it lives on the people engagement. It's a force which must be grown by and fed by people involvement. And it must be shared with them. It's for people. And actually vision reflects the highest purpose of leadership. It's purposeful acting for and with people. It should include the actual benefit for people and for those particularly affected by it. You know, this is a passion for people which is shared with them. You know, think of a personal life from a very simple perspective. If I don't see my dearest within my vision or within the frames of my future, it's not a vision, it's a social exchange. I'm bringing money, you do my cooking. You know, that's unfair.
What makes it a vision? What makes it a vision?
Vision is our common goals, is our common efforts. It's seeing each other in that prosperous future, being happy together. And that is very different. This is for people. Otherwise, it falls down to my personal ambitions. And I don't know anyone being attracted by somebody's personal ambitions. You know, it's not about ego, because ego kills
collective
instantly. You know,
so the vision has to be collective for the betterment of all, not only me, it's the future generation as well.
Absolutely. You know, we are living, our achievements are actually living artifacts for the next generation, and they're learning from us how to serve others and how to grow together. It's not just about us. It's they're watching us very carefully. We're not noticing this. They are. You know, we're particularly, see, today we're talking a lot about being servants. And being a servant, it means doing everything beyond own interests. It's a very different level. And it must be really clearly defined and delivered to people. And we, as leaders, we're obliged to help people to make their lives fulfilling and meaningful. This is vision is about.
So thinking of others without receiving any rewards, or even thinking of rewards.
You will get a reward, but you will get it after people will get their portion.
So they get their portion, and then you'll be satisfied by actually being contented and satisfied. Thank you so much for that. By the way, to our attendees and to our audience, when we broadcast this, Dr. Oleg has a book called Leaderology. It's a manifesto of leadership. I do recommend it, and I'm sure most of you have read it. Let's go to Professor Rowe. Lauren talked about the benefits of serving others. I'm going to give you the chance to talk about the consequences. What are the consequences of serving others? Give me, as briefly as possible, the pros and cons of the consequences of serving others.
See, everything has got both plus and minus. So when we serve others, you know, we add value to the society and the people and the community. So they'll be very happy with our contribution. But it consumes a lot of time, money, and energy. And the consequences of serving, you know, we can't please all sections of people. When you look at Mahatma Gandhi, he was assassinated by a Hindu fanatic. That was the consequence. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated because he could not please all sections of people in America. Martin Luther King was assassinated because he could not please all sections. So everything has got pros and cons. So when we look at the merits outnumber the demerits. And the leaders must be courageous to lead from the front to serve others. When we serve others, we will not have much stress. We will be very happy, and it increases our happiness, because when we see the smile on the faces of others, we get some satisfaction, and it increases our longevity, because we will live for a longer time and we'll be happier. So it's better to serve the people. A simple example I will tell you. 10 years back, when nobody was coming forward to write a foreword, Ulrich wrote a foreword for my book. First point. Nobody, I sent emails to many people, around 100 people I sent emails to write foreword, but Ulrich was the one person, when I was in the initial stage of my writing books, he wrote a foreword, one. Secondly, he has included his code. That I don't know what it is. So that code to my soft leadership, free of charge. That the kind of service he has given. I still have that gratitude even today. So when you serve people, it never goes waste. It will come back. When you give it to the universe, it will come back. So now let me talk about Bruce Rosenstein. Frances, I sent an email to Frances Hazelden with an article. She told Bruce to publish it, and my article was not up to the mark, but he spent a lot of time to edit my article, because I write in Indian English. He converted into American English and edited nicely and published one article. And also he published the second article also. So I still have gratitude to Bruce. My article was good, excellent, but it was not up to the standards of global. It was not up to the global standards. So when you serve people without expecting anything in return, people will have gratitude, and you will get back. So when you give it to universe will give you back. I have a friend. His name is James Stroke. I read his book. I'll show you the book, Serve to Lead. It is one of the finest books I have read in my life. His name is James Stroke, and he also wrote a foreword 10 years back when I was struggling to establish myself as an author. So I read this book about service. So whenever I talk about service, that book comes to my mind. Whenever I talk about HR, Ulrich comes into my mind. Okay, whenever I talk about management, modern management, Peter Drucker comes to my mind.
How about appreciation? Who comes to mind?
I never met Peter Drucker, and Bruce is very fortunate to have met Peter Drucker. I have dedicated a book to Peter Drucker. The title of the book is Soft Leadership, New Direction to Leadership. And Philip Kotler, the father of modern marketing, has written a foreword for that book. So what I have learned in my life is we have to serve the people without expecting anything from others. If you do good things,
Wonderful.
Good things will come back to us. That's what I strongly believe in. And I am what I am because of the support from great people like Dev and Bruce and Marshall Goldsmith. So when
Chester,
I talk about
Chester.
coaching, Chester, when I talk about coaching, Marshall Goldsmith comes to my mind. So I am what I am because of the great support I have received from many of the management thinkers. So I have that gratitude. Why I have that? Because they served me. They didn't get any money by serving me, but they served me, they helped me. So I have that gratitude. So what I feel is that we should try to help the people. If you can't help, at least we should not harm the people. We should help the people. We should serve the people. It will come back. It's like an echo. If you do good things, it will come back.
It's a reciprocation. Well taken. The notes well taken. Thank you so much for that. So the lesson learned here is reciprocation. You give, others will reciprocate back. And Dr. Rao, Professor Rao just showed it by him giving back by showing these books without any hesitance, because he believed in these people that helped him in the past. Now let's go to Bruce. Probably before I do that, if I go off script for 1 second and ask Dr. Dave, why did you write the foreword to Dr. Rowe at the time where he was less known? It's a good opportunity to tell us why you wrote that. Because I know it's you, but why did you really write it?
Two reasons. One, it was a great book. I actually read books that I endorse and write forwards, and it was well thought out. It was good. And two, I really believe that a good leader invests in the next generation. And it was very clear that Professor Rao is, I don't know what your age is, that's irrelevant, but he is part of the next generation. And a good leader is not good because of what she or he does. They're good because they've created the next generation. And I thought that book is going to be powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. He also he's making the impact on the future generation by having an initiative of what, 100 million thought leaders, or he's trying to develop 1 million thought leaders.
1 million
so thank you for
leaders.
that, Bruce. That 1 million global leaders. Thank you so much, Bruce. Let me go to you. As a managing editor of Leader to Leader, how do you select what topic you need for publishing in your journal? And the question is serving others is one of the topics of interest to your audience, and if not, how can you make it of interest?
Well, maybe I'll take the second part first. And serving others, certainly is. And again, it starts with Frances from her motto of "to serve is to live." So, but I think this comes out in a number of different ways in terms of the articles. In terms of the topics, we're not choosing topics specifically. The whole idea of Leader to Leader is, while anyone can read it, the whole idea is leaders writing for other leaders. So we see our audience as people in some sort of leadership position, or perhaps aspiring leadership. We have a number of people at business schools and what have you who are readership. So in doing that, and I should say that Dave, has done multiple articles for us, even before my time as managing editor. I've been managing editor for 9 years. Dave, you might not realize this, but you were in my very first issue, which was issue number 63. So quite some time ago. And Professor Rao, of course, has written for us as well. So the whole idea, as I said, leaders writing for other leaders, leaders of organizations, thought leaders in this case, leaders in all, for-profit, non-profit. We've had military leaders, what have you. We've had university presidents who've written for us. So the topic would be whatever is close to them that we then feel is worth it. And it has to be something where, as I say to people, what can our readers learn from you and only you? So it has to be something unique. It has to be something practical. It has to be something useful, because we're trying to help leaders become better leaders and help their organizations become better. So that's where it comes out. And yes, service, and Frances, as I said, she writes a column, I should say, in our journal. So she's written about it a lot, but we've written directly about that issue, about service expressed in that way. But really, when you look at pretty much any article, you would see that somewhere that is of service to somebody. So I think that's kind of where, how I would lay it out for people, especially people who are not familiar with Leader to Leader. I'll also say, let's see if I can grab the book, since we're showing books. This is a book of, people can see it, of that Frances, Work as Love Made Visible, that Frances wrote for it, and was she was one of the main editors of, and Dave has a very, very good essay in that book. And also in her book, My Life in Leadership, which is really fantastic book, there is, To Serve is to Live is one of the chapters in that. So I would recommend really anything that Frances has written, but I think people will especially enjoy those two books that I just mentioned.
Isn't it funny you're recommending Frances's book and you're not talking about your books, which they're also helpful in helping others. So I do thank you that. Bruce, thank you. Thank you. You're also
Bruce,
a good servant leader.
You can see the book.
You got it too. Wow.
Probably every book on earth, Professor Rao has.
I have so many books. I have books of all Ulrich books. I have got around 10 books. I have got all hard copies, but inside I have kept.
That's
That is
wonderful.
great.
So
That's
it's a
wonderful.
coincidence that you have the same book with you. I received the complimentary copy. This one.
Nice.
Work is made. Work is love made visible.
Yeah,
Okay.
fantastic book. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you,
So
Bruce.
we have similar wavelength. Bruce.
So we're scheduled, officially, we're scheduled for a 5 to 10 minutes break. It's up to you if you want to continue. But if we do continue, it's the round of continue. Okay. So let's go with Dave. Dr. Dave, this is your call now. And the question to you, sir, is what is the best life advice you can give our audience, our attendees, our audience, and future audience when we broadcast? What is the best advice you can give?
Read Chester's book.
I was just thinking, boy, I'm glad Dave got that question and not me. I mean, you might as well have said, what's the meaning of life?
I'm going to give two answers. The first one is what we've just been talking about. Leadership is not about the leader, it's about the next generation. And I'm going to give an answer that's more personal. This is my next generation.
Beautiful.
We took that picture 2 weeks ago. That's the grandfather. That's me. That's beautiful wife. Those are 3 kids. Those are wonderful, beautiful mother, my mother, and 10 grandchildren.
My regards to Wendy and the family.
I appreciate it. She enjoyed her interview with you very much.
Nice.
You know, we talk about our next generation as our children, our grandchildren. For a leader, that's not necessarily it. I think there's 2 things I've learned in the last few months. One, leaders build the next generation of leadership. I get that. That if Chester's word is he's the apostle of appreciation, apostles only live when they create next generation. That's the idea. But the second thing I've discovered, I'm coaching a person, I won't name the person or the industry. He's married, but no children, no intent to have children because of lifestyle. And I said, you got to build the next generation. He said, I don't have progeny. I don't have children. And what is that? And I said, the product you've created in the world today is changing the world. And he has created a product, if I mentioned it, it would just blow you away. I mean, it's like a building, an architecture, a service, a package. Every time you see someone in the world using your product, feel proud. You've created the next generation. Next generation is not just progeny. It's not just ideas that somebody follows, that we're obviously showing the next generation of Peter Drucker's ideas and Francis Esselbein. We're paying incredible tribute. But it's also the products or services that a leader creates that other people use. And I said to him, you know, as you go around your daily world, when you go to stores, when you go online, you see the stuff you've created. You should feel that's your next generation. As proud as I am of our kids and grandkids, and I keep liking, I just want to show the chart because it's fun.
Yes.
As much as I love that, I think the next generation in this group are the ideas we've created, our books, the legacy, but I think it's also the services we've created. And so, Lauren, every time you see somebody who has a bottle of your sacred wine, by the way, that's not very many people now because you've got no more grapes, but in a few years, you'll have it again. You should say, that's my next generation. And I hope you feel the incredible pride of having created something that outlasts and outlives you. So that's the advice I'd give, is invest in the next generation, not just your people, but your ideas and your services.
That's a very, very well advice. And thank you so much for saying that and advising others for that. Chester, what does serving others mean to you?
You know, I would just echo Francis Esselbein. I think a life well lived is a life of service. You know, I grew up in a ridiculously happy household. And, you know, I channel my father multiple times every day. And the reason I do that is that, you know, you just love to be around my dad because he made everybody around him feel better about themselves. You know, he would tell me these little stories and jokes, and one that, for whatever reason, always stuck with me. He said, you know, it's the couple that goes to a gala, and they get separated, and they talk to various people, you know, that are famous at this gala. And as they come back together, the husband asks his wife, he says, well, what did you think of of Rex. And she said, you know, after I talked to Rex, I was convinced that he was the most interesting man in the world. So that's fascinating. What did you think when you talked to Barbara? She said, you know, after I talked to Barbara, I was convinced that I was the most interesting person in the world. and I just love that story, because I think great leaders aren't about impressing you with how interesting they are. They're really interested in developing you and the legacy. And a life well lived is a life of service. You know, Dave and I, in our faith, we have the opportunity at a young age to serve a mission for our church, to preach the gospel. And we do it at our own expense. In fact, Dave gave up 3 years of his life to be a mission president in Montreal, Canada, to guide, I don't know how many missionaries you had there, Dave, 200 or more. And this gift of service, I was thinking about it, I said, never in my life before or after did I have the opportunity to wake up every day and say, how do I make someone else's life better today? For absolutely no compensation. And that foundation of altruism and giving and service is a foundation that I know has served Dave well, and his kids and my kids that have served missions as well. So this whole thing about a life of service, it's not a nice to have. It's foundational to not just great leadership and legacy. It's foundational to a good life. When you look at people that are unhappy, it's because they're not serving. And if you are unhappy, or if you're too caught up in yourself, go out and serve someone. It's the greatest medicine. It's as we would say, the balm of Gilead. To be of service is to be happy. And that's my take on it. And I'm, as the apostle of appreciation, I'm sticking to it.
I think it's well taken. This is a well taken. I like the fact you're giving others, serving others comes from a faith-based, but what you've done through your work. No, let me repeat. Let me continue, because what you've done, although it was a faith-based initially, what you've done with your work, you made it a mainstream. People would not know because the faith is very strong in your upbringing plus your teaching, but you don't make it an issue. You bring it to the mainstream.
Yes, very true. And absolutely foundational to who I am and how I grew up. I would also say that my parents were very intentional about surrounding their children with remarkable people and people that were giving of themselves. I loved that my parents would bring in people that they had met that were in government, or my dad was in radio. He'd bring in different personalities and different religious leaders. And they made sure to surround us with good people. So while no question, foundationally, it's my faith. It was my parents. It was my family culture that was really, I was ridiculously blessed that way. And my parents it was really interesting. I look back and I know they were very intentional about saying, hey, listen to what this leader has to say. Listen to what this woman, look at the work they're doing. Think about how you want to be remembered. What is going to be your legacy? And it was just a gift that I hope to give to my kids.
You're giving your kids and you're giving everybody else, because in a symposium like this, our aim and intention is to bring serving others to the masses and mainstream. So I thank you for that. Dr. Oleg, let's go with you. Why do people need each other?
No one could applaud with one hand. We need both, right?
Yes.
And it's not about me. It's about everything about what I do for others. Actually, you see, I lived half of my life in Arctic, above the Arctic Circle. And I'm a very keen fisherman, and I have a fishing buddy with whom we always were fishing like two crazy guys. For instance, 50 miles away from nearest village. No one around. Everything could happen to you. You know, the last thing you could face is fighting with bears. You know, they're not the fanciest guys, but you could end up in many tough situations. So you need someone to help you. And my friend need me to help him if something would happen. in professional terms, can we become professionals without help of others? No, we will remain amateurs, right? We need others to be investors in us, and we must be investors in others. And a leader is actually a sponsor, an investor in others in terms of believing in people, supporting them, and helping others. Teams, not crowds, win battles, you know. And so if we are separated, we are fragmented, we're dispersed, and we disappear. We must be that energy.
So it's a global unity regardless of race, color, religion, faith. It doesn't matter what it is. Just love each other, serve each other. And whatever tradition and norms we learned in the past, those are in the past. Let's start a new future, where embrace each other as human beings. I love that. I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Oleg. Lauren, let's go with you. You have worked in both worlds, profit and non-profit. And I got to know you in the last days, few weeks. And you've been of service to others all your life, as far as I know. Question to you, the first question, how rational is giving? Let me put it this way. Is giving or serving others is an emotional or a rational approach?
You know, I think for me, it's both in a lot of ways. And let me just clarify one thing. I actually, unlike, with Chester's life and such, I did not grow up in a family that was accustomed to or used to giving. They were not philanthropy. My father was an entrepreneur, and he worked very hard, came from a middle class, lower income family life, difficult during obviously the Depression era and all of those kinds of things. And it wasn't an innate thing that I was taught or any kind of level of being taught when I was a child. It only really happened as I got into business myself as a young female entrepreneur in the high-tech world way back when, that I remember a very particular incident with my stepmother. My mother and father divorced when I was younger, and my stepmother was going to meet me for lunch one day, and there was a young woman with two very hungry looking children who came out and immediately started asking for money. And my background at the time was, gee, what are they doing here? Why are they here? This is a bother. Versus my stepmother, who very quietly said, what can I do to serve you? What can I do to help you? And without hesitating, reached into her pocketbook and brought out, at the time, like $100, which is a lot of money, and said, go take care of your children, go get the bus back home, work on your resume, because apparently she was lost for a job interview, this person. And I remember the selfless act, just this one little selfless act, was the turning point for me. I was probably about 22, 23 years old. And it was a turning point for me about giving back in a selfless, emotional, but also, rational way of saying, this person needs help. This person needs that support at this point in time. That's the logical thing to do. And that was something that was taught to me so powerfully that became a turning point for me for the rest of my career, the rest of my life, my service to others, getting involved with nonprofits, starting entrepreneurial entities, doing everything I can to teach others how to do that same thing. Sometimes it takes just that emotional context that you're meeting a stranger on the street that needs that help, and you can help in that moment. Other times it's a more strategic approach of how do you build a nonprofit to be successful in its realm and in its age or wherever its mission is. That strategy is much a more rational part of giving back and getting to that organization to be helpful for many more people. So I think for me, it was something that I learned at a younger age. It's become the backbone of everything I've involved with on the for-profit or nonprofit. And it has become a way of being part of a bigger community. It's been a way of part of getting to know my community, getting to know people around the world. And of course, you know, I'm in the wine business. A glass of wine doesn't hurt with that, but it also is having conversation. It's having these deeper conversations. That's one of the reasons actually why I got in the wine business, because most of us enjoy that with a good meal and a great glass of wine or whatever is interesting. And you have the ability to have those deeper conversations about the emotional and impact of giving, what everyone is doing in their life for giving, what is working for them or not working in that case, and being able to have these discussions about what that looks like for their own life and their own careers. And that's one of the reasons why I got into all of this and to do this. And in my heyday, I was on 7 boards, 6 nonprofits, 1 for-profit, 22 committees, and I was chairing 14 of them in 1 year. So for me, I came in deep with this because I wanted to learn it and because I wanted to understand it, and I wanted it to be the backbone of everything else I did. So for me, it's both.
It's both. And now you are on 3, on the board of 3 nonprofits, not only 1, but you're still busy.
Yes.
3 of them. So does it make you feel happy when you give to others?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's just, it's such a great feeling when you can give what you do best back to the world, back to, you know, what you're involved with. And for me personally, being involved with nonprofits, I'm at the board level in most cases, and I always look at, you know, what do they want to be when they grow up? Essentially, 5 years from now, it's always difficult because the key is always how do they raise money and how do they get that going? But truly, what is it that is the mission, and what are you trying to create, and what are you trying to do? So giving that ability, my expertise is in big picture strategic thinking 5 to 10 years down the road. That's what I used to do in the technology world. Now I've been doing it in my own world and in the nonprofit world. And for me, that feels good when you can set the trajectory of an organization to being successful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's well said. Well said. And that's Lauren for you. Dr. Rao, Professor Rao.
Yeah.
Is serving others for leaders only, as Lauren told us now? She didn't tell us only, but she told us she's in a leader scope of service to others. But the question to you, is serving others only for leaders? Can anyone serve others, or is it an exclusive club?
It's not that anybody can serve others. So Martin Luther King said once, you don't have to have any degree or anything to serve others. Anybody can serve. So the point here is, one thing I have noticed behind Dr. Dave Ulrich is, I think the image of Dr. Martin Luther King. Am I right or wrong? Right or wrong?
I have 3 leaders whom I respect. One is Dr. Martin Luther King. The other is Sheikh Zayed. And the other is my father. So I have pictures of 3 leaders in my back.
So I could catch the image of Dr. Martin Luther King. I admire him very much. Okay. So Dr. Martin Luther King has told once that anybody can serve others. You don't have to be a leader to serve others. And serving is not confined to any particular elite club. Anybody can serve anybody else. That's one thing. And there are people, they often come up with excuses that they don't have time and they don't have money. I don't believe in all those things. When you have the heart to serve others, definitely you will make the time to serve others. One, you may not have money. If you don't have money, at least you have the time. So invest your time to serve the people. Okay. So in my case, what I do is I share my knowledge freely with the world. That's what I do it, because I write books, but I don't get any royalty from books. But I'm still passionate about writing books, which has already told some time back. So I keep on sharing my knowledge freely with the world. That's what I do it, and that gives me a great satisfaction. So it's the takeaway is very clear. You don't have to have any degree to serve others. You don't have to be a leader to serve others. Anybody can serve anybody. That's what I strongly believe in.
I believe so too. I believe so. Sometimes you can serve others with a smile. You don't have to give anything, just smile at them, and that's enough. Bruce, let's go to you. What can managing editors and publishers do to encourage their article contributors to write about serving others? As you see here, we're emphasizing serving others and making it really in mainstream. So what can they do, especially publishers and people like yourself in a position in managing editors and publishers? Bruce?
Well, I think that, I really have to be upfront here in that I really can't presume to speak for other, editors or other publishers of what they may or may not want to do. And part of that really is because this whole idea, as we've seen, serving others, it comes out in a number of different ways, right? So in articles, I think maybe subconsciously some editors might choose those sorts of things. If you're talking about something that's totally special around that, then they really have to want to do that, and they have to have a reason to do it. Now, one thing that I had kind of forgotten about, in preparing for this symposium today, was I had mentioned in my first book, Living in More Than One World, a book focused on Drucker's work that's about living a multi-dimensional life, which, all the panels here today have talked about that. And in that book, I had mentioned something I'd forgotten about, which is that in 2007, I believe it was, Time Magazine, and maybe for all I know, they've done it since then, but Time Magazine did an entire special issue about service to others, about things like, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, whatever it was. I don't, maybe some of the other panelists know if they've repeated that or if other people have done it. So I think in theory, it's a good idea. People would have to have the reason to want to do it if they wanted to do something just specifically. But really, I think you could go to any number of, Harvard Business Review, Leader to Leader, any number of those publications. And if you look at it with a critical eye, you see that there are just many, many articles in every issue that in some way or another deal with that topic of serving others. So, the other part is, that the publishing world is in a complete kind of upheaval now. And so it's there are fewer print publications, we can kind of go on and on about that. So, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea or that somebody couldn't run with it in that way, but they would, I think it could be a good idea for somebody to maybe do kind of what Time did back in 2007 and focus something on that way. Maybe bring things together where you do have things like, things about, as I said, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, some of these other things, or maybe it's military service, whatever it might be, and maybe even on a global sense. But again, I don't presume to speak for others or to propose others to do things that, it sounds like a great idea, but that's for others to kind of want to do and discover on their own.
It's a great idea. You have led the way. You've always been leading the way, and I hope you do lead the way this time as well. Thank you, Bruce. Before we go on a third round, I'd like to acknowledge our attendees. We have 85 people registered. I haven't counted how many attending with us today, so I do thank you. I welcome you. And I'd like, if I may ask you, our attendees, tell us what you do and what country you're from or city you're from. So this way our thought leaders know exactly who are they serving and what are their reach are. So if you may take a minute or so, kindly in the chat room, tell us who you are and what country. So let's continue with Dr. Dave. You have given us the best advice you can give your audience. Now the question to you, sir, now is, what advice you wished you had received earlier in your career? Personal or life choices?
That's a great question. And I still need so much advice. I solicit advice from good people. Whenever I coach someone and have the privilege of doing that, and I don't get to do it all the time, I almost always end with 4 words. I got to make sure I have the 4 words right. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Physically, sleep, nutrition, diet, emotionally, anxiety that Chester will help us figure out how to do with his book, gratitude, socially, that Lauren talked about being part of a social network, intellectually, being curious. Oleg is curious, and Professor Rao is curious, and Bruce, and spiritually, taking care of your spiritual self. I think my advice to myself would be, remember, Dave, take care of yourself. And by the way, I try to do that. It's so hard. Everyone on this call, I bet if we all raised our hands, are busier in some ways than we've ever been. Chester in a hotel room, Lauren in the room that she's decorated, Oleg north of the Arctic Circle. I'd love to know that story. Professor Rao with his 295th book. You know, we're all so busy. Just stop once in a while. Today, my wife and I are feeling some stress. I shouldn't confess that, but we're both busier than ever. So yesterday we looked at today and we said, we have 2.5 hours open. I'm going to get emotional here because it was really cool. Let's go for a drive in the mountain. We live in a place where the colors have just changed in our season. And so we drove for 2 hours, an hour up the mountain and saw the beautiful fall colors. We drove back for an hour and then I got on this call. And you know what? That will be the best 2 hours of my, no offense to this call, but that will be the best 2 hours of my week, because Wendy and I got in the car, we turned off our phones, and we just appreciated taking care of ourselves. So I hope that I can give myself the license in the middle of a chaotic week. Webinars, bizarre, at least I'm not sitting in Houston, but that was for Chester. But all this stuff going on, take 2 hours and drive up the canyon. And I hope that's okay to encourage myself to do. I don't do that very well.
So basically, take care of yourself. Make sure, is it health-wise only, or even internally, like personal development?
Internally. You know, connect with whatever form of spirituality we have, whatever background that may be. Connect. Anyway, yes, you got it. Just take care of yourself. 4 words. Okay. Take care of yourself.
That's an advice we should follow, and I'm going to make note of it. Now let's go to Chester. This is your chance to answer, Dave. Because, you know, okay, here you go. Let me see what I have to ask you here. I ask you most of the questions I need. Let's talk about the anxiety at work. And you can answer, Dave, any way you want.
Yes, well, thank you for the forum to talk about that. I just want to say, Lauren, I appreciate so much you sharing your story. You know, that there was a moment that it changed so much of the way you look at life. You know, that one moment of grace, that one moment of charity. Plus, you know, your background, that chandelier kind of gives you this tiara kind of crown look. So
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Every time you speak, I think this is the queen. This is royalty speaking to me, which is, I think, beautiful. You know, yeah, our work on anxiety has been really interesting and very personal for both Adrian and I. We both had sons that went through extreme anxiety and social anxiety and depression and are still dealing with it. As many of you know, that's not something that just goes away. And Adrian was actually working on the book as a project with he and his son. And you know, we've been writing together for 20 years. Adrian Gostick is the best friend you could ever imagine. And so we've shared everything over 20 years. Well, took it to our publisher as a self-help book. And, you know, you talk about books, you know, Bruce and Oleg and Dr. Rao. They said, don't write a self-help book. You have no credibility in that space, right? He said, you guys are business authors, make it a business book, bring in Chester, and we called it Anxiety at Work. Well, there were so many dimensions of anxiety at work that we looked at, and particularly in younger generations that are so open about their personal lives in so many ways, you know, whether they're posting it on Instagram and Facebook and so on. And one area that particularly resonated with me is this avoidance of meaningful conversations, you know, even conflicting conversations where you had to talk about hard things. And there's this avoidance of that. And I think it's because people don't feel safe. You know, one of our goals in this book is to try to remove that stigma of mental health or anxiety in the workplace. You know, and Dave, you know this in organizations, You know, you've got the employee assistance programs and say, hey, we've got this employee assistance program that'll just call this number, and nobody calls. And nobody calls the number. I remember being a salesperson for a company out of Utah where Dave lives. I was so stressed out, and the head of HR was one of my dear friends. And she said, Chester, you need to take some time and get some counseling. And I said, absolutely not. And she said, you know, it's completely anonymous. And I said, no, it isn't. Nothing is anonymous. I would never want the fact that was in my employee sleeve that I had to go to a counselor. It will ruin my career.
What's wrong with that? Why?
Everything is wrong with that. There's nothing right with that. And so take this, like if I had a skiing accident and broke my leg and said I needed 2 weeks off from work, no one would say a thing. And yet if I said, you know what, I've been under so much stress, I am so anxious, I need 2 weeks off to get my head right, everybody'd go, whoa, what's up with Elton?
There's a stigma there.
There is a stigma.
Yep.
So creating this safe place for employees to be able to talk about it, to remove the stigma, and have those tough conversations in a safe place really is one of the missions of this book. And I hope you'll all help us, because particularly this younger generation, where they're so open about it, where they've got so much going on, they live in 15 digital lives, and their Facebook life has to be perfect. Everything is perfect in my life. You know, I'm posting, you know, job promotions and wonderful vacations. Nobody has a perfect life, like nobody. As remarkable as this group is here, I guarantee you we've all got stuff, every one of us, right?
Everybody has a story, very true.
And again, we spend so much time at work. If we can't make work safe, if we can't find ways to reduce that stress and anxiety, we will lose the war. I'm convinced.
Thank you so much for that. Lauren, let me jump to you. How can we encourage leaders and people to convert their mindset from a mindset of achievement and thinking of the me only to a mindset of contribution and serving others? So basically from the I to the we.
Yes, and I think, you know, that comes again, I think, in my way of looking at it, and I don't have the distinguished backgrounds as all of my fellow cohorts here do. Mine is more from experience and just being on the ground, building things and building businesses and such. And I think what I have seen over my life and my experience of watching people who are truly admired and might be successful in their business endeavors, but even more importantly, if they're successful and as who they are as a community member or a leader in different ways, I think, you know, that to me speaks volumes about how to live your life and how to be. And again, I think it's not always something that comes innately. Some people have that naturally, but there's many more, I think, that need to understand and learn that through experience, through, you know, role modeling from other folks and other people they admire, mentors, things like that. The ability to go from an I, because a lot of times, especially in the entrepreneurial world, it is a lot about I have this idea, I want to build it, I want to do this. But it quickly becomes, it has to become a we, because the only way, as we've touched on before, to really build something is you have to build a team, and you have to get that team to be cohesive, and you've got to get that team on the same page as this is our where we're going with this idea or whatever it might be. So I think it's by teaching, it's by role modeling, it's by being on the ground in real time. A lot of times seeing that when you are only about I, that a lot of times you're alone. And if you bring other people into it and you make that team effort and you talk about, we did this and we are accountable and we are building this, that's when the success, the achievement, the ability to feel satisfaction, the ability to really create something unique and special happens. That's the magic, that's the juice that I think brings a lot of this together. And I've seen that in both, you know, the nonprofit and the for-profit world. That's when it's exciting, is when you can get that and you see people switching from I to we, and they see how that builds upon itself. There's nothing better than that, truly.
It's more effective to have the we
Yes.
then the I. It's more effective and more
Absolutely.
successful. Dr. Oleg, let me ask you this way. In today's uncertain times, does serving others must be included within the organizational social responsibility and awareness? Should it be part of the vision, serving others?
It's a core of a vision. It's not
Core.
included. It's a core of a vision.
It should be the core of the vision, okay.
And that is quite critical because look at simple point. I've been looking at a very interesting issue, confidence. I feel confident when I know that I deliver my promises to people, right? Not to myself, but to people. Organization initially was founded, established on a promise of making or creating value for people. Otherwise, why this organization physically exists? Even if this company doesn't have a huge vision, okay, but it's still about serving people. Therefore, it's not to be written, it's a core idea of it.
It has to be the purpose. The organization has to be purposeful by thinking of the society along thinking of the shareholders and the employees, right? So it's a shareholders, employees, customer, and society.
Yes, exactly. And
that's what should be included.
Just like if referring to Aristotle's initial idea, what a state is an interaction of people for a common goal, right? In the same organization.
Common goal, yeah. Same as an organization, same as society, same as any form of norms you're trying to create. Yes. Thank you for that. Let me go with Dr. Rao. Professor Rao, the question to you, sir, is, that's going to be the last question in the line of questions I'm providing to you, and then we go to the premise of this symposium. The question to you deals with this. Serving others as a concept is a beautiful thing. You say, oh, I just serve others, and I'm good in being of service to others, right? So it has a good feeling to it. But is it really? Is it really that beautiful? Who are some of the leaders who paid the price for serving others?
I think you asked the question in a different way. The consequences of serving the people. See, the thing is, to serve people, we need courage. Courage is essential to serve the people. Because when you serve the people, some people will be happy, some people may not be happy. Because you can't please all people. If you want to grow as a courageous leader, you can't please all people. So what happens when you take a stand and make a decision, then some of the sections might not appreciate your decision. As I told you some time back when you asked that question, let us take the case of Abraham Lincoln. He was very successful. Abraham Lincoln has been my inspiration since my childhood. Even for Frances Hazelbein, Abraham Lincoln is her inspiration. So why he is an inspiration to me is because when America was beset with several challenges like civil war, slavery, so various issues were there. So he led from the front, and he was the first. He was the 16th president of America and the first Republican president. So he led from the front and he unified America. He modernized the economy. He strengthened the federal structure. He did so many things, but still he was assassinated. Why? Because he could not please
everyone,
some section of the people. You can't please all people. You take it for granted. And we are not here to please the people. We are here to stand with our convictions and lead with our convictions. That's what I believe in. When we feel that something is strong, we have to stick to that and we have to lead from the front, irrespective of the consequences. That is one. A second challenge, second problem, Mahatma Gandhi. He was the person who led India's independence through non-violence and truth. and he was successful to get India's independence. But some of the sections among Hindus, Hindu fundamentalists, they didn't like, and he was assassinated by Godse. So that is the second case. And let us look at Dr. Martin Luther King. I admire him very much, and even he was assassinated. And when you look at Nelson Mandela, he was jailed for 27 years or so. So it's not an easy thing when you lead from the front, when you want to serve the people. You have to have the courage, and you have to stand by your convictions, and you have to lead from the front, irrespective of the consequences. So these are the examples, I think, enough. There are plenty of examples I can give, but I think these examples are enough for people to understand the price the leaders have paid for their principles, and for their values, and for their causes.
It's worth the price. There are sacrifices, but they are worth the prices, because the general good that comes out of serving others is well worth it. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Bruce, let's go with the essential. Why we actually put this symposium together. Tell me, is serving others essential? And this question is going to be to all of you. So instead of me asking you, we're going to go Bruce, and then we're going to go Dr. Dave, Chester, Oleg, and we continue like this. So that's the question. Is serving others essential, and why? And it doesn't have to be yes. You can give us a different opinion. But is serving others essential?
Yeah, well, thanks. I think it is essential, just for all the reasons we've heard today. But it does take effort. It does take, you know, intentionality, as someone said earlier. So I believe if you take in all these reasons, you know, if you listen to everything that was said today, or took notes on it, that you'll see that that it is essential. However, it can also be difficult to do. It can be frustrating for some of the reasons that people talked about, and you kind of have to keep at it. But again, I really do want to come back to that serving others takes on a number of different meanings. It can be in any sector of society. In other words, it could be something that you're paid for or you're not paid for. So yes, I think it's essential, but also thinking of all those other things that go along with it.
Excellent. Dr. Dave, is
A few
serving
years
others?
ago, I was invited to do a commencement talk for a graduation. And most of those talks are these great rags to riches stories. Lauren, you could obviously do one of those talks. You've got such a great story. And all you have to do is show that backdrop and people would listen to everything. And then if you gave all the graduates a bottle of wine, you would probably be the most famous speaker in the history of it.
There you go.
I don't have a story like that. I grew up normal. I mean, I had normal parents. And so I struggled. What could I give graduates? And I decided I do periodically get to coach. I would ask them 4 questions that I ask people that I coach. And it gets to your question. Question 1, what do you want? If you don't know what you want as a person or as a leader, somebody will define it for you. Almost never in your interest. Know your passions, your strengths, your I'm now giving my commencement talk. Know what you want. Be clear. Number 2, who do you serve? And that's your question. If you start with what you want, you're a narcissist. That's not good as a leader at any position in any company. Who do I serve? Who do I make better? Because strengthen others because of your strengths. Number 3, how do you build? Create some kind of institution. It could be family, it could be work, it could be not-for-profit. Lauren, I just sit here in awe. 14 committees. I served on one board committee and I was overwhelmed and they threw me off because I wasn't good enough. How in the world did you do 14? What do you want? Who do you serve? How do I build? And the 4th question is going to take another half minute of explanation. Where am I? There's a great religious story in every religion of Adam and Eve. They made a mistake. Great religious story. God comes down and he says, Adam, Eve, where are you? Where art thou? For 50 years, I thought Adam was hiding behind a rock. And then it hit me. God can see Adam behind a rock. So Adam, you're behind a rock. Let's play a game. Where are you? That's not what God was asking. I think the question in that religious story, and take away the religion, look at the principle.
Mhm.
Adam and Eve made a mistake. Where are you in your journey? You know what? It's okay to make a mistake. Are you going to repent or change, whatever the word is? Are you going to come back? Or are you going to get distracted? I love that fourth question. Where am I in my journey? And I don't hide behind rocks or bushes, and I can't hide from myself. What do I want? Who do I serve? How do I build? And where am I? Those are my four questions built around that concept.
And I love those questions. And I'm sure the
Excellent.
audience do that too.
Excellent, excellent.
They are excellent.
Professor
Chester,
Rao, that will be in a book you can publish, and I would be honored because my idea then has next generation ideas. So please take it and publish it, and say it's from Chester and I, so that we both get credit. Thank you.
There's a good news for you. If you can allow me, I'll share some good news.
Of course.
Dr. Dev shares some articles regularly through email. Some 3 years back, he shared an email about our building organizations of the future. So I reviewed the books. Then I got a trigger to write a book. Then I wrote a book titled Strategy and Business. I completed, that was the 60th book. Dev and I have some problem. He told, that I don't remember that word. Okay. Writing disease we are having. Okay. So I wrote the 60th book titled Strategy and Business. And in front of everyone, I am sharing with you that even I did tell to Dr. Dev also. I am dedicating that book to Dev Ulrich, his wife Wendy Ulrich,
Good.
and Ulrich family.
That's beautiful.
Sure, I'm committing. I don't know when it will be published. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Already I have written and kept it. Okay. Because I dedicated one book to Peter Drucker, and that has been published. Soft Leadership, A New Direction of Leadership. And second book I have dedicated to Philip Kotler, but that has not been published. I don't know how much time it would take. Third book I have dedicated to Dev Ulrich, his wife Wendy Ulrich, and Ulrich family.
Wonderful.
I'm declaring in front of everyone, I admire Dev Ulrich like my elder brother.
Nice. Dave, I see gratitude at play here. That foreword you wrote 10 years ago, it's paying off now.
Yes, yes. True.
You know, that makes me feel better. I have 3 books sitting in my inbox that I'm supposed to write a foreword to, and I'm getting hassles even as we speak that I'm behind on all 3. I will write 3 more forewords this weekend. So I'll let you go. I've talked too much.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much, Professor
Chester,
Rao.
let's go with you.
To me, it's a simple answer. It's yes. Just yes.
You can say no if you want.
I couldn't say no. It would be so disingenuous. I really do believe the happiest people are people that serve. It was really interesting as we interviewed leaders for our gratitude book and did the research. They never talked about themselves, ever. It was all about how we were able to build this for the people, how we were able to, create opportunity and develop leaders and impact communities and impact people's lives. The happiest people I know are people that serve. And the most unhappy people I know are people that are just so wrapped up in themselves, they can't see anyone else. And to me, that is a tragic life. So I'll save time for the rest of you. My vote is yes.
That's wonderful. Oleg? Dr. Oleg.
Yes, thank you. I would like everyone, actually brilliant minds, thank you. What I believe as a leader, I promise people to serve them by leading them into that prosperous future. Here comes the opposite side of that coin. I promise to serve them, but not to please them, because pleases never lead people into the future. Pleases are faceless, and they're quickly forgotten. Here, if I promise people to serve them by leading them somewhere, I'm taking my full responsibility on it. I'm putting my skin into the game. And this is important to consider, because also I'm serving by helping people to get connected between them, and I'm connecting people with their future. You know, all days we use, all of us used to know this famous motto of Nokia: Nokia connects people. Then once flying somewhere, probably via Frankfurt, I noticed vodka connects people, right? In one of these duty-free bars. But in fact, leaders connect people. So we serve by connecting people and connecting people with their future. And this is our responsibility.
Leaders set the tone for others to follow. Let's go with Dr. Rao. Professor Rao, is serving others essential?
Very much, very much. Because service is the core of my personality, and service is an integral part of life. And even you also serve the people by bringing thought leaders into one platform. It's also kind of service.
Yes.
Right? You provide a great ambience where people are connected virtually, and it's a great opportunity. So service is a must. Without service, there is no meaning to life. And I strongly believe that everyone must serve, and they should not invent excuses that I don't have time, I don't have money. So these are all lame excuses. We have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. The takeaway from this symposium is that I got a trigger from Dave Ulrich: build on your strengths to strengthen others. So that's the article I'm going to write. One takeaway. Second takeaway, 4 things he has told Dr. Dave Ulrich. So on that also I'll be able to write an article too. And the third takeaway is that already 2 articles have been published related to serving others based on your trigger. So hopefully, if things fall into place, I may write a book on service also.
That will be nice. That will be nice. Thank you. Bruce, let's go with you, and then we'll end up with Lauren. Bruce, you said that already, right? You already mentioned you were the first to start it. Lauren, let's end up with you. Is serving others essential?
Absolutely. I mean, unequivocally for me, I think for me personally, it's learning to serve, practicing serving others, helping others. It just makes my life happier, and I'm hoping that others' lives are happier as a result for themselves as they learn to do the same. And for me, it's just been part and parcel to what I do and where we are. And my world is hospitality. Hospitality is a way of serving. Hospitality of making people feel comfortable around a table or with each other and starting those deep conversations. Those are the kinds of things that for me are really truly part of my everyday life. And then when you apply that to the business world, you apply that to leadership, you apply that in so many areas, absolutely, it's the most essential part. And again, I say it doesn't have to be a big grand thing. It has only to start with something small, something that makes you feel good, just one little spark of joy in one day, in one person's life. That's all it starts with, and that's all it takes sometimes. When you can do more, it's even better. But start with something small. Start with just reaching out for one little bit of kindness somewhere in the world and provide somebody else a little bit of joy each day. And what you get back in return is far more.
It's unbelievable. True.
Dr. Abe, I'm going to be obnoxious.
Yes,
You've organized this. What's one thing you hope people leave this session with? What's one thing you hope people leave this symposium with? We get to ask you a session. What's one
sure
thing?
You can. Sure you can. Just to be able to be of service to others. As I just said earlier, smile would serve. But if you check on your neighbor, if you check on your elderly neighbor, say, "Hey neighbor, how are you?" That's part of serving others. And it doesn't take leaders to do this. It takes just an initiative by being of service to others. That's all it takes. But as a leader, you really have to take the initiative and help others because you set the tone. I do thank you because we're almost within the time. We are perfectly within the time. I thank the audience. I thank each and every one of you. I also have something for you. I'm going to share something with you. To each and every one of you, I appreciate you, and you're going to receive one. Well, each one of you are going to receive a certificate of appreciation. It's not $1 million because you have, not only you have participated in the first virtual thought leader symposium, the reason for this certificate is what follows. And here what it is. It's for your recognition of your valuable contribution to the development of mankind and for making our world a better place. This certificate of appreciation is for that. This one is for Dr. Dave, Oleg, Lauren, Professor Rao, Bruce, and Chester. On behalf of the symposium, I present these certificates to you, and they will be emailed to you as a form of appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's a nice
Can I make a quick request? Because,
Yes.
you know, I get certificates with my name on all the time. Can I get Lauren's name on mine just so I can?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Well, Lauren comes with $1 million. I don't know. We'll issue a certificate for everyone.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I would say if and when any of you or all of you online are ever in Napa, come visit. We'll continue this conversation over. You're all invited.
It's a deal.
All right, I'm holding
And
you
if,
to it.
if you haven't connected with Lauren, you can also do that. She is wonderful to know. And as she mentioned, she can be definitely of service to all of you. And we will be of service to her as well. And we hope and pray, Lauren, that you overcome what you're going through now.
We are looking forward to next year.
We are on, thank you so much. We are on time. I do thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. Continue doing the good work. And thank you for helping humanity become better and making a better world. Audience.
À bientôt. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you for the initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, our attendees as well.